How you guys doing? We're talking about the Bristol Dirt Weekend. For the third year in a row, the NASCAR calendar brings us to the high banks of Bristol, covered in dirt. And for the third year in a row, I will not be able to cover it with the passion and love that I cover everything else with. Yes, that's right. I have to go out of town this weekend. Last minute funeral that I got to go to. Last year I was out of town working on a laptop, really spotty internet. Did a live show, I looking at it, bad quality. What I was saying wasn't bad, just viewing experience, everything around it was just poor. Year before, I forgot what was going on exactly, but it was the same story. I wasn't able to cover it from my own computer, from my own setup. Just that's how it's gone. Both of those previous years, that has been my most watched, or one of my most watched live streams. And it's frankly embarrassing that the most amount of eyes and stuff are on just poor quality in terms of what it's come out. Not with what I'm saying, not the content, but, lags, audio issues, things like that, just from being somewhere else, not on my usual thing. That's just how it's going to be. Well, that's how it is this weekend. I hit the road tomorrow, and that's just how it's going to be. Now, I do projections and stuff anyway because I'm going to play some, but I'm not playing anywhere near as much as I would just because I can't be here and covering everything the way I want to. So mainly for this video, I'm going to walk you through what I personally do in case you pull data, in case you have somebody who pulls data for you, in case you want to look at data, in case you just want to just look at things. We've done very well at Eldora and Knoxville in the several years that we've done it for trucks. We've had a good idea of what happens and stuff like that. Entering the first year at Knoxville, I told everybody it was going to be a fucking joke. I told you it was going to be a disaster. Nobody watched it. I think that video still has like 90 views on it. It was made, well before we even got to Knoxville. I was like, look, this could be a disaster. Hesitant. Let's back up. But anyway, we've been fairly accurate on these dirt races, and I've enjoyed the stuff that I've looked at. Just the content side has not been good, and it's just going to continue that way. I think last year we did all right. I know I didn't play Kyle Busch, but I know I had Briscoe and Reddick clearly and other guys. But anyway, when we look at this race here, I'm going to answer this based on if you are looking at data and looking at lap by lap data in the heats and in the practice sessions, which I would encourage you to do. Actually, secondly, we have weather in the area. I'm not sure if we're going to wash, if we're going to have a wash on Friday, if we're going to have a wash on Saturday. I'm not sure if we're going to have truck series race on Sunday as well. We have a lot of weather in the area, just like the first year of how dumb this event is. So I don't know if we're going to necessarily have on-track activity tomorrow. That's yet to be seen. Anyway, I'm not going to be here to pull data from it. But what I would do, and you can do this in two sessions. Typically, they've done the two practice sessions. Actually, let's go ahead and look at the schedule because it would be quite embarrassing if NASCAR really did just totally got rid of the schedule. But let's go here. Let me see. Sorry about that. Let me bring up the schedule. So we have two practice sessions for the truck and cup series, and then we have the heat races, and then the mains, clearly, and everything like that. This is what I would do, and this is what I normally do. Pull the laps from both. Look at the practice laps, and when I say pull the laps, this is for everybody who actually, scrapes the data from NASCAR's feed. Do not. I can't explain to you enough. I'm going to grab you. Just going to squeeze you, okay? Do not bother looking at NASCAR's bullshit averages that they put out. This is the best 5-lap average. This is the best 10 laps. This is the best 15 laps. Useless. Grab that, turn it into kettle. We burn that. We don't need that. That's such a horrible, horrible thing to look at because these tracks are going to change. And look, I apologize if you are familiar with dirt tracks. Very quickly, for all of you that have never watched my stuff before or are new this year, whatever the case may be, I worked on race cars for several years, dirt modifieds, street stocks, or USRA modifieds, B mods, things like that. I've been around dirt track racing my entire life. Grew up, able to throw a rock bait practically at the dirt track that was right beside my house for several years. Later worked on cars there and at the Southern Mexico Speedway, which was the El Paso Speedway Park, Southern Mexico Speedway, Vado Speedway Park, the real famous, real state-of-the-art racetrack now. Vado, been there, worked on race cars there. Done a lot of stuff. I'm really, really familiar with the dirt track industry. Anyway, and everything goes into weekly racing, setting up cars, blah, 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 blah. when we look at these practice sessions, we need to understand how this track is going to change and understand that track is going to get slower, it's going to get faster, then it's going to get slower at times, it might get faster again, whatever the case may be. It's been a bit of a challenge. We saw the first year was fucking mess. Second year, they fixed certain aspects to it. It was still not necessarily a mess, but the track was different from year one and year two. When we look at the practice sessions, honest to God, the first sessions for both series, the truck series for sure, series number one for the trucks, a bit of a wash, okay? Yes, it's good to understand who is fast, who would speed on a virgin racetrack, who was good in everything in the first practice session for the truck series. But for the most part, just grab that and throw it out. and I say throw it out very aggressively because, look, if you're pulling the data, you're going to be looking at everything. If you aren't and you're leaning on touts or anybody else, if they are giving you data based on the first practice session, I would be very hesitant to trust that stuff. I think it should be looked at as an additional data point, maybe picking back off of what, this guy had a good long run speed at the very end of practice session number 2, which is very similar to what the racetrack is going to race like. But what if he starts in the back of the field in the main event? What if he needs to pass a lot of cars? Well, then let's look at his speed in practice number 1, because that's more similar to what the track in the race is going to start at. Is he going to be able to use the high side? Do you think we're going to be able to see him get through the field? Was he faster on a new racetrack than an old racetrack? So practice number 1 can be good for that type of stuff, but in determining who is a race-winning car, a car that is going to perform up front, a car that is going to be fast, I would not personally look at practice number 1. So that's the first part. Secondly, I know I just said don't look at the first practice session, but I think we can use both of those, both the practice session I'm speaking too fast. If you're looking at a part in the first practice session, I would look at the last 10 minutes. Because roughly, that's going to at least be, you're probably at least going to get 15 to 20 laps from most drivers in the last 15 laps, if not way more if they are out there. But it gives you a good indication of what they are just running when a lot of cars have been on it. They haven't had to not regroove, but have to rework the track. They haven't had to put moisture back into it. They haven't had to tear it up or anything like that. It gives you an idea of what people are doing once everything gets run in, once the cushion starts getting made on the outside, once the bottom lane really starts drying off and it really starts just throwing dust up and things like that. So if you're looking at the first practice session, also look at the very end of it. Look at segments in these practice sessions. It really is. Look at it in terms of quarters are too aggressive, because you can have way more change in the track in a quarter of a practice session than most racetracks. And so I would honestly break the practice session into eighths and isolate lap times in every driver by where they are in terms of what eighth of that practice session they're in. Now, I understand this is where it comes down to, are you trusting people who pulls your data? Do you have access to your laps that you're pulling from there? Does the person who's pulling the data understand when certain drivers were on the track? Because if you line it up, when you pull data and if you line them up just every lap across the board, you're not going to see spaces. You're not going to see when cars were off the track when they weren't. And usually you can dissect and usually move them over left or right to line them up with the other cars on the track in terms of when they were on the track in terms of time. If you just have all your laps on the spreadsheet with no gaps in between, or if you're taking out all the slow laps and stuff here, you're just going to see a bunch of laps. I would implore you to identify laps, look at the practice session, break it into eighths, and then look at each of those laps and eighths by what those drivers are doing in relative to what the other guys are doing. And so if we're looking at two drivers, and this guy is projected to finish like second, this guy is projected to finish like fifth, well, let's just isolate them and compare them where they are, in like the third, eighth part of practice session number 2, 7/8 and 8/8 of it. I would look at those just to see, you get an idea of kind of what they're doing once the track gets moved in and stuff, not necessarily halfway through the session, but you understand where they're at, and then you see where they are at the very end when the track is really being run in and everything like that. This is, in my opinion, it is a really intense, crunch heavy. You're not deep in the weeds, but you're having to do a lot of work here. And yet again, that's typically why I just haven't been able to fucking present it in a good way, because I'm doing it on just a single screen. I've been on a laptop every time I'm doing this. And you're on the time crunch of the heats going into the truck race and everything like that, because you have the truck heats starting at 4:30 and you have the truck race at 8. So you have less than you really have like 2.5 hours to build projections, get everything in there. Which what I'm going to do is just build and this is what I've always done, is I just give projections out. I don't do the heat map. I don't do any of that stuff. I just give you the projections based on where they're starting and where I think they're going to finish, because I don't want to waste time, making the heat map and everything like that when we have such a tight window. But the one thing I look at is the heat race lap times and lap speeds. I like to just get an idea of that, because Fox is going to do a terrible, terrible job at showing us what the field is doing. They're going to show us a terrible, terrible job of the actual lap times and lap speeds. One thing that I like to use and that I like to do is use the eye test. I know this is going to sound mundane and maybe even lazy to an extent, but you can use an eye test a lot on the dirt to see who's fast, to see who should have a good car, specifically in the heat races. And I think the Cup heats should be way easier to identify these drivers based on the eye test versus the Truck Series heat, because the Truck Series heat, you're on a fresh track. Heat number 1 is a fresh track. You have the pole sitter starting first. Heat race number 1 is always a bit iffy with the trucks, just because the track is nothing like it's going to be in the race. However, the Cup Series, you're going to have cars on the track. Even if they redo the surface past the Truck Series heats, I'm not really concerned about that. We should have a very good we should be able to identify, purely just based on what these cars look like. If you're able to see somebody who's able to carry speed in the corners, get through and pull away going down the straightaway, I would recommend playing that driver. What I typically do, and I even did in the Clash and stuff, but when you run heat races, just jot down notes. Write notes down. If you see somebody who's looking fast, who's looking like he actually can control the car, who's clearly making speed, because you're going to be able to see who has speed and who doesn't, specifically carrying it from the center off down the straightaway, just write that down on a piece of paper. Just write it down and make your player pool based on that stuff. That's kind of, a quick 12-minute, rundown of typically what I do. It sounds easy in the time, when you're actually sitting down into it. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. It's way easier with 2 or 3 screens. In terms of live shows this weekend, probably not going to be doing live shows, okay? I might get back to Houston late Sunday, but I doubt I'll be live. I don't even know if we're going to have the race on Sunday. Like I said, there's weather in the area. We got a real chance that we're going to lose Friday and Saturday on this track. So we might just be doing everything on Sunday. We might be racing on Monday. I don't really know. Don't know what to tell you there. But I probably will not be live. Feel free to ask me questions. Excuse me. Hold on. I got to cough. My brain's out. Give me a second. So that's that aspect of the race. That's typically what I do and what I look at. Let's go ahead and look through the driver list real quick for the trucks, for the Cup Series. And I got some news on the tout-sponsored truck for Martinsville, but I'll save that for the Martinsville videos and things like that, because I just went ahead and asked Jordan what was up with all that stuff. So when we look at the Truck Series, and for the most part, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not with a good team, this is a huge hindrance to you. That's just how it is. If you are not with Tricon, KBM, Thor Sport, you're at a bit of a disadvantage. GMS, you can argue that. But first off, if you're not with a good team, it's not going to work. Secondly, for the most part, I would honestly, very similar to what I would recommend you do in general, block the names out. Find the data points that you want to carry weight on, that you want to represent a majority of your projections, whatever the case may be. If you're looking at laps from practice, if you're looking at laps from the heat race, if you're doing the driver, if you're using the eye test, block the names out. Just play the cars that look good, that carry speed, yada, yada, yada through there. Because what that said is, I understand that, like, for example, we got Jonathan Davenport in the 7. Fantastic racer. Awesome racer. Everybody understands who he is. Everybody has seen him win races. Everybody knows who he is. I have to bring up that I have found that yes, good racers, people with a ton of talent are going to be able to get speed out of these stock cars. However, we have seen, just due to their limited practice time, like Jonathan, if he, I would be very shocked if he wasn't out there every second of practice session 1 and practice session 2, because he absolutely needs the track time to get to know what he wants to do with this car. I will bring up the fact that we have seen dirt ringers struggle. We have seen them absolutely struggle. We've seen some show up as well and be fast, and we have seen others struggle. I cannot for the life of me think of other ones who have done well or who have performed well at the moment. I know there have been. I just went blank. My mind has went blank. The main one I'm thinking of is Schrader. Schrader was actually pretty competent in the trucks back in Eldora, but he had a lot of experience running ARCA cars on the dirt as well, understanding that they're not going to rotate like a regular dirt car. They're not like, look, the closest to what the stock cars run are true, ICMA stock cars or USRA stock cars, whatever, stock class or super stock class you use, that run old Camaros, that run metric chassis, whatever the case may be. Those are the guys that are going to have the most feel for it, because you don't have like a birdcage chassis underneath you. You don't have your left rear, moving wildly in the corners. You're locked. Your rear axle is locked to where it's at. That's one thing that we've seen a lot of big dirt guys who come from a lot of sprint cars and things like that kind of struggle right off the bat with these stock cars, just because they're heavy. They push like a fucking dump truck, and they don't rotate through the corners nearly as much as you want them to. So I understand there's going to be a lot of effort behind Jonathan, and yes, I understand that he can go out and win both races, but I would just be I wouldn't be as shocked if we just see Jonathan run 15th in each of these races as well. So I don't think we should go in there having all eggs in one basket for Jonathan. That's just how it is. Now, he's priced decent. He's a good driver, but I understand, to see what he does in practice, see what he does in the heat races, gauge a lot of stuff off of that. Don't just judge it based on where these guys are hopping in on. The truck series in and of itself is a pretty big joke. It's it really. I mean, man, it really, really is. This truck series has turned into a bit of a joke. And so, when I see a lot of these guys here, yeah, sure, Nick is going to have a good truck. Is he going to have a lot of experience? No, not at all. Should we go to Logano? He's 10-4. Honestly, I mean, not a lot, or not really. Do I really want to go there? Man, not that much. William Byron 10-1, Chase Briscoe 9-9. Yeah, sure, we've seen Briscoe in this car before, but he didn't perform that well in the previous truck race. We've seen it before where Larson was in the Rackley car last year and couldn't get through the field. Track position is absolutely huge here. And so even if it's a big name starting in the back, or even if it's a big name in a car, truly leave it to what you're seeing in practice, what you're seeing in the heats. And I have to say, if you have a guy, which we're going to have, if you're starting in the back of the field, it's because outside of a really, really, truly big fuck up in a heat, it's because you're slow. It's different if you're a car running third or second in a heat, and you're going to do a lot of oversteer, and you get really, really loose. You may bring it to the bottom of the apron or whatever the case may be. You might even halfway spin out, NASCAR doesn't throw a yellow, you finish last in your heat, blah, blah, blah. I understand that, but outside of that, I don't think any place differential in the back is worth chasing for either of these races. If you aren't starting up front, and not even up front, if you aren't starting, inside the top 22, you need to look at these cars and be like, it really is because these cars are just slow. It's not because they lost, these gigantic positions. It's because they lost those positions, or just randomly, it's because they lost those positions because they were so slow, So, I mean, I know I just said, I talked about Logano, Byron, Briscoe, and stuff. The people that I would honestly look at in this race to contend for a win, it's probably Byron. I would honestly put Zane Smith in there. I'd put Ben Rhodes in there. I'd put Crafton in there. I would put Infinger. Those would be the main big people that I would honestly put in to start off the bat or have direct interest in it. Haley Deegan, Davenport, clearly. Caden, I have a lot of interest in Caden. I really, really do. Matt DiBenedetto, Jake Garcia, Stuart Friesen. We've seen Jessica struggle a ton. She hasn't even made, she missed out on this race. She flipped at Knoxville last year. That's a mess. Kligerman, but man, for the most part, I don't really have true people that I want to chase in here. Like Andrew Gordon, the car is not going to perform well. Jerry is not going to perform well. These Reum Brother cars, they are not fast cars. No amount of money that they ran with these drivers are going to do anything. So I don't want to play I don't want to play a lot of the backmarker cars either. Tyler Carpenter in the 41. I mean, yes, no. Look, if I can honestly see a situation where Davenport's going to struggle, of course, I think, Tyler's probably going to struggle as well. And so black the names out, follow the practice data that you want to trust, follow the heat race, follow the eye test. That's what I would focus on. When we look at the Cup Series, wide open, clearly wide open. I do believe that we're going to see the Cup guys with more dirt experience have an edge, as we have seen that for the Cup Series, because this is filled with very equal amount of cars and a very stacked field. We've seen that if you have, the slightest bit of dirt track, knowledge, it's going to help you out. Kyle Busch, yes, wins the race last year. Ran a consistent race last year, never really took the lead until the very end, the final lap. But yes, he performed well. Yes, Suarez has performed well at this track with very little dirt experience, but for the most part, if you have it, it's going to give you experience. Now, with all that said, we also need to look at this. When you look at the ARCA race at the fairgrounds, and you look at how this track just dries out, once you get past the, stage 1 and stage 2, stage 3 really does race like just a paved racetrack. It really does. So, it's really more so of a case of who do you trust at short tracks that has a little bit of dirt experience or that can survive the early amount of the race when the dirt aspect of the race is probably at its biggest factor, And that's when you look at how they perform in the heats, how they perform with the practice speeds and stuff like that. But really, the second half of the race is going to be determined by who's up front and who is just able to drive a loose race car. Not even necessarily to get sideways, but can you drive a loose race car on a short track? So, it's wide open. I hate to really say that because I'm not giving really big picks or anything, but I spent the first 12 minutes of this video telling you what I specifically look at. And once I go through all those, situations or all those things that I want to look at, that's how I usually determine this point. So, we're deep in the race. We're trying to figure out who's going to be good in the long run. We're looking at the long run speeds in both practice sessions. And at that point, it's going to kind of default to who do we think is going to be able to, have a good car truly when the track is worn out. So look at practice session number 2. Look at probably the 6th, 7th, and 8th of practice session number 2 for the Cup Series, and I think that's going to give you a really good idea of who is going to compete for the win, come Monday or Sunday, whenever they end up running the Cup Series race and stuff like that. Truly unfortunate that I'm just not going to be here. Really sucks. That's just how it goes, man. Third year in a row, I can't cover Bristol dirt like I want to. Unfortunate. But if you guys have any questions, tweet at me on Twitter. I will be checking my phone. I will be in Discord. If you got questions, tweet at me. I mean, you can DM me too, but tweet at me. I'd rather just answer things out loud so people can see what I'm answering and things like that. And projections will be up for both the races. I'm playing lineups for both these races. I just can't. Just a shame I'm not by my computer and stuff where I can't really go over a ton of stuff. I'll be not jerry-rigging stuff, but I'll be just hopefully I can find other people pulling the data that I can look at confidently and stuff. Or for the most part, I might just end up focusing more on the eye test, to be honest with you, from the heat races, and very quickly looking over what they do for the practice sessions, things like that. But anyway, best of luck, guys, in both these races. It's going to be a pretty crazy week. I would honestly advise you to play light. I know it's not fun doing that. I know it's not fun cutting back, but we've had Atlanta, Coda. We got this race here. Pull back a little. You don't have to play. You don't have to play a ton. Save for Talladega. If you don't like Talladega, put it into Martinsville. Put it into Dover at the end of this month. We can take. You don't have to play your massive amount, that you normally do each and every week. This is a race where you play it light and enjoy the spectacle, the shit show. Also, secondly, real quick, tickets are available. I can't emphasize this enough. This event is not selling at all. They have been selling close to no tickets for this race. NASCAR is not going to admit that. They're not going to want to say that. You are going to hear propaganda this weekend. But I can tell you, because I have seen the sales numbers, that this Bristol race has been wildly underperforming so far. Now, unless we get a shitload of tickets sold in 2 days, this is looking like a big issue for continuing this race, because the fans are not showing up as of Thursday at 5 o'clock. If you want to buy a ticket to Bristol, buy a fucking nosebleed section, buy the cheapest ticket you can, and go sit wherever you want, because you are going to be able to sit wherever you want. Do not waste money on an expensive ticket for Bristol. Buy a cheap ticket, sit wherever you want. That is my advice. Just wanted to point that out there real fast, because I guarantee you we are going to hear the exact opposite on the broadcast and on social media. And I can tell you right now, this race is not selling tickets. I will see you guys in the next video, and best of luck this weekend. See you guys later.